The night shift in the giant alien hospital was always quiet. Long silver hallways shined under soft blue lights, and most people walked past the cleaning staff without even looking at them. Among those silent workers was Evan, a human janitor who kept his head down and did his job with calm hands and a gentle heart. He never complained. He never talked much. He simply cleaned the floors, wiped the windows, and stayed out of trouble. Humans were rare on this planet, and most aliens thought humans were too simple, too weak, or too slow to do anything important. Evan didn't argue. He only wanted peace. But on this night, something broke the quiet. A soft sound slipped out from a half-open door like a tiny cry. Evan stopped. He wasn't supposed to enter private rooms. He wasn't even allowed to talk to patients unless they spoke first. But the cry came again. This time, weaker. Evan pushed the door open slowly. Inside was a small alien child, maybe 8 years old, lying on the cold floor beside a hover bed. Her legs were thin and curled, her arms too weak to push herself up. She had fallen, and her soft breathing showed fear and pain. The room was empty. No doctors, no nurses, no guards. The hospital staff often rushed around caring for rich adults. Leaving children like her alone for long hours, Evan knelt without thinking. "You're okay. I'm here," he whispered softly, even though he knew she might not understand human language. The girl looked at him with large glowing eyes, full of tears. Dirt smudged her cheeks and her breathing shook. Evan lifted her carefully, supporting her head and back so she wouldn't get hurt again. He gently placed her onto the hoverbed, then used his cleaning cloth to wipe her hands and face. He wasn't trained for medical work, but he knew how to help someone who was scared. The girl held onto his sleeve with trembling fingers. She whispered a small sound, almost like, "Thank you." Evan froze. He wasn't sure if she actually understood him or was just reacting to kindness. But he smiled softly. "You're safe now," he said. He straightened her blanket, fixed the pillow, and placed her broken toy beside her. Then he cleaned the spilled medicine on the floor so she wouldn't slip again. What Evan did not know was that he wasn't alone. Hidden high in the corner of the room, a small crystal lens glowed faintly. It belonged to Lady Sarisha, the girl's mother and one of the richest alien billionaires on the planet. She used that camera to watch her daughter from her private chamber. And right now, she was watching the human. Her heart shook with confusion. Why was a human janitor helping her daughter so gently? Why did he care when her own expensive staff ignored the child's cries? Lady Sarisha leaned closer to the screen. This human had no fear, no hesitation, and no selfish goal. He simply saw a child in pain and helped. Her long silver fingers tightened around the control panel. "This human," she whispered softly. "Who is he?" She pressed a button in the hallway. 2 armored guards received a command through their earpieces. "Bring me the human janitor in room 52. Now, Evan heard the heavy footsteps long before the guards reached him. He quickly stepped away from the child and picked up his cleaning tools, thinking he had broken some strict rule. The guards stopped at the door. "You, come with us," one of them said. Evan felt his stomach twist. Would he be fired? Punished? Humans didn't get second chances here. He took one last look at the little girl. Her eyes were wide, worried. She reached a small hand toward him, as if asking him not to leave. But the guards grabbed his arm firmly. And as the door closed behind him, he never saw the powerful billionaire watching him with new eyes. Eyes full of questions, or the beginning of something he could never imagine. Evan had never seen guards move so fast for someone like him. Humans were usually invisible in this place, just simple workers cleaning the floors, carrying supplies, or doing small jobs no one else wanted. But now, 2 tall alien guards were walking on each side of him like he was some dangerous criminal. He kept his head down, gripping his cleaning cloth in his hand. His heart beat faster with every step. The guards did not speak. They did not explain why they were taking him. They only led him into a private area of the hospital where humans were normally forbidden to enter. The walls changed color, here smooth, dark blue, with glowing symbols carved into the surface. Everything looked richer, cleaner. And more important, Evan felt smaller with every step. They stopped in front of a tall silver door. One guard pressed his hand against a glowing plate, and the door slid open without a sound. Inside was a wide chamber filled with soft lights and floating screens. At the center sat Lady Sarisha, the alien billionaire. She wore long robes made of shining threads that changed colors when she moved. Her eyes were sharp, glowing like stars. And her presence was so powerful that Evan felt like the air around him had turned heavy. The guards pushed him forward gently, but firmly. "Kneel," one of them ordered. Evan dropped to one knee. Not out of respect, but out of fear. His voice came out shaky. I'm sorry if I did something wrong." Lady Sarisha did not answer. She studied him like someone observing a rare creature. "You entered my daughter's room," she finally said, her voice calm but strong. "You touched her. You lifted her. You cleaned her." Evan swallowed hard. "I heard her crying. I didn't mean to break rules. I just wanted to help." A long silence followed. The billionaire tapped a crystal on the table. Instantly, a floating screen appeared, showing a replay of the moment Evan lifted the child from the floor. His gentle hands, his worried face. The way he cleaned her tears, it all played right there in front of him. Evan lowered his head in shame. "I shouldn't have. Why did you help her?" Lady Sarisha interrupted. He blinked. "Because she was hurt. That is all." She asked. "No reason. No advantage. No reward." "No," Evan said softly. "She's a child. Anyone should help her." The guards glanced at each other, surprised. In their world, help usually came with conditions, with power, with something to gain. But this human? He had nothing. He wanted nothing. Lady Sarisha leaned forward. "My daughter, Lyra, does not trust people. She fears strangers. She avoids touch. Yet she allowed you to hold her. Why?" Evan shook his head. "I don't know, ma'am. I just tried to be gentle." Another long silence. Then something unexpected happened. A small door opened at the side of the room, and Lyra rolled in on her hover chair, pushed by an assistant. Her eyes lit up as soon as she saw Evan. She reached her arms out toward him, weak, trembling, but full of hope. "Human," she whispered. Lady Sarisha's eyes widened. Lyra had not spoken to anyone in days. The assistant panicked. "My lady, should I remove her?" "No," the billionaire said sharply. Evan wanted to step back, afraid the guards would react. But Lyra kept reaching for him, her tiny fingers shaking. Lady Sarisha stood slowly. "Human," she said, her voice softer than before. "My daughter chooses you." The guards tensed. Evan felt confused. "Me? Yes," Lady Sarisha said. "But I do not trust humans easily. So, I will decide your future myself." She walked closer, her long shadow falling over him. "Stand up." Agon rose shakily, unsure if he was being punished or tested. Lady Sarisha studied him one more time. "From this moment," she said, "your life is no longer the same." The guards stepped back as Lyra's hover chair floated closer. The small alien girl looked fragile, her thin arms shaking each time she tried to lift them. But her eyes, bright, soft, glowing, were fixed only on one person. Evan. Lady Sarisha watched silently, her hands clasped behind her back. She didn't understand it. Her daughter rarely spoke. She never smiled, and she never reached for anyone. Not nurses, not teachers, not even her own mother, But now the child was stretching her trembling arms toward a human. Janitor, someone the galaxy considered low class and unimportant. The room felt frozen. Evan hesitated. He didn't want to break another rule. He didn't want to offend the billionaire. But Lyra's eyes were pleading. That same tiny cry from before lived in her voice. Human. She whispered again. Devon slowly stepped forward. Lady Sarisha said nothing. She wanted to see what her daughter would do. As Evan came closer, Lyra reached out and touched his hand. Her cold fingers curled around his thumb, holding it as if she had finally found something safe, something warm, something she had been missing. Evan knelt beside her chair, so he was at her eye level. "Hey there," he said softly. "Are you okay now?" Lyra nodded once. A very small smile formed on her lips, tiny, shaky. But real Lady Sarisha's breath caught in her throat. Lyra had not smiled in months. The assistant looked shocked. The guards exchanged confused glances, but Evan didn't notice any of it. He only saw a scared child who needed comfort. He wiped the dust off her sleeve gently. Then he picked up her broken toy, the one he had fixed earlier, and placed it on her lap. Lyra hugged it close. "She likes you," the assistant whispered. Unable to hide the surprise, Lady Sarisha walked forward, her steps slow and thoughtful. "Lyra," she said, her voice calm, "you want the human with you?" Lyra held tighter onto Evan's hand. Yes. That single word shook the room. Even the guard's armor vibrated with the tension. Lady Sarisha closed her eyes for a moment, as if trying to understand the impossible. "You only speak when you feel safe." "Why him, child?" Lyra looked up at her mother. Then she pointed her small, glowing finger toward Evan's chest. "Heart." The room fell silent. Lady Sarisha's expression softened, but her voice stayed firm. "A human janitor showed you more care than my staff, then my guards, then those I trusted." Lyra nodded. Evan swallowed hard. He didn't feel ready for this kind of attention. He wasn't special. He wasn't trained. He was just a man who saw a child crying and helped her. "Lady Sarisha," he said carefully, "I don't want to cause trouble. I just did what anyone should do." "No," she replied immediately. "Not anyone. Only you." She turned to her guards. "Send the senior nurses to me. All of them." The guards hurried out. Evan felt a strange heaviness growing around him. Was she going to fire them because of him? Replace them? Punish them? He didn't want to hurt anyone. "My lady, please, I never meant to." She raised a hand, silencing him. "You," she said, "showed kindness to my daughter. You gave her something no doctor has given her. No machine. No medicine." "What is that?" Evan asked softly. Lady Sarisha looked at her child again, the smile. Weak, but shining like a tiny star in a dark sky. Hope. Lyra suddenly tugged at Evan's hand. "Stay," she whispered. Evan hesitated. His shift was not over. His supervisors would yell at him. But the child's small fingers shook with fear at the thought of him leaving. "I'll stay a little longer," T told her with a gentle smile. Lady Sarisha watched the scene closely, her mind racing with new possibilities, dangerous ones, unusual ones, choices she never imagined she would face. Because now she knew the truth. Her disabled daughter felt safer with a human janitor than with anyone else in the entire galaxy. And that meant everything was about to change. The news spread through the hospital faster than a spark in dry grass. A human janitor touched the billionaire's daughter. A human made her smile. A human was summoned to the highest chamber by the next morning. Every wealthy alien in the hospital whispered about
Evan.
And none of them whispered kindly in the golden cafeteria. Place where humans were not allowed. Several alien elites gathered around floating tables. their long fingers wrapped around crystal cups. "This is shameful," one sneered. "A billionaire letting a human near her child." Another spat. "He is dirty. He is low class. What if he harms her?" Humans are unpredictable. Their voices rose with fear, jealousy, and hatred. But Lady Sarisha was walking past them, hearing every word, and she did not like it. Meanwhile, Evan quietly cleaned the lower floors as usual. He tried to act normal, but everything felt different now. People stared at him, some with anger, some with disgust, some with fear. He kept his head low. His only comfort was the memory of Lyra, smiling at him. That one small smile felt worth all the trouble. But trouble was just beginning. 2 alien nurses approached him, blocking his path. "You think you're special now?" one asked coldly. "You think a child's attention makes you important?" The other hissed. Evan backed up a step. "No, I'm just doing my job." "Liar," the first nurse snapped. "Humans always want something. Money, fame, power." Evan shook his head. "Not me." The nurses laughed. "Let's see how long your little moment lasts." They walked away with angry footsteps. Evan sighed. He never asked for attention. He only helped a child who needed him. But now the whole hospital seemed ready to turn against him. Upstairs, Lady Sarisha sat with Lyra in a quiet therapy room. The child was practicing simple movements with her hands, but her eyes kept drifting to the door, waiting for the human. Lady Sarisha asked softly. Lyra nodded. "Heart." Lady Sarisha felt a sting in her chest. She loved her daughter deeply. But she had never been able to give Lyra what Evan gave her with no effort, comfort. Trust, peace, double quotes, how? She whispered to herself. How does a simple human do what my entire medical team could not? She stood up and called her head advisor. "What are the elites saying?" she asked. The advisor bowed. "They fear the human, my lady. They believe he will damage your reputation." "And what do you believe?" The advisor hesitated. "I believe they hate him because he did something they never could." Lady Sarisha felt her jaw tighten good. She liked honesty, and they also fear, the advisor continued, that you may place a human above them. Lady Sarisha's eyes narrowed. "Maybe I should." Later that day, Evan was cleaning a corridor when a soft humming sound appeared beside him. Lyra's hover chair floated toward him, followed by a robotic assistant. The little girl reached her hand out eagerly. "Human," she said. Evan smiled and walked to her. "Hello again." Lyra looked healthier today, her eyes brighter, her posture stronger. When he gently touched her hand, she relaxed instantly. That simple moment, just a human holding her hand, felt like medicine. Lady Sarisha watched from behind a half-open doorway, her sharp eyes thoughtful. Then she stepped out. The corridor fell silent. Evan stood quickly. "My lady, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." She raised a hand. "Be calm." Lyra turned toward her mother, still holding Evan's fingers, for the first time in years. She spoke to her mother without fear. "Heart," she whispered, pointing at Evan. Lady Sarisha felt her throat tighten. The nurses could not do this. The doctors could not do this. The therapists could not do this, but a human janitor did. She stepped closer and looked Evan directly in the eyes. "Human," she said softly. "The elites do not like you." "I know," Evan replied. "They whisper things. They doubt you, I figured." "But my daughter." Lady Sarisha looked at Lyra, then back at him. "Trusts you in a way she trusts no one else." Her next words were quiet but powerful, and because of that, "You are now under my personal protection." Evan froze. Lyra smiled, and somewhere deep in the hospital, the elites began to feel a fear they had never felt before. A human was rising. The evening shift began quietly. Evan pushed his cleaning cart through the dim halls, trying to shake off the strange tension he had felt all day. Ever since Lady Sarisha had placed him under her protection, the elites had grown even colder. Whispers followed him everywhere. Doors closed when he walked by. People pretended not to see him, but the worst thing, none of them smiled at Lyra the way he had. He didn't care about their anger. He cared about her. He wiped down a window, humming softly to himself. Lyra liked when he hummed. She said it calmed her heart. It became a small routine between them. Then the lights flickered. Evan stopped. The glowing strips on the walls blinked twice, 3 times. Then went dark. A sudden, cold silence swallowed the hospital. Evan froze for a second, listening. No alarms, no voices, no footsteps, only a low, humming sound, like a machine struggling to breathe. Then the emergency lights turned on weak, red, and pulsing. The hospital had lost main power, and that meant something dangerous. Lyra's life-supporting equipment needed full energy. If the backup systems failed, Evan didn't finish the thought. He grabbed his flashlight and ran. Meanwhile, on the upper floors, panic spread like fire. Nurses shouted. Guards ran in circles. Robots malfunctioned. The hospital staff tried connecting to central power, but the system refused every command. Lady Sarisha stormed into the control room. What happened? She demanded. We don't know, my lady, a technician stuttered. A full power failure. Even the backup cores are unstable. My daughter. Where is my daughter? The technician swallowed hard. She is still in her chamber, but the energy feeding her chair and breathing module is dropping. Lady Sarisha felt her entire world turn cold. Get her emergency team. We can't contact them. Communication is down. Her hands shook. She was a billionaire, a leader, someone who controlled entire companies. But she couldn't control this moment, and she couldn't reach her daughter, but someone else could. Evan sprinted through the dark halls, slipping past panicked staff and broken robots. His lungs burned, but he kept running. The red lights flickered again, dangerously low now. He turned a corner and nearly crashed into a nurse. Where is Lyra's room? He asked urgently. She's upstairs. But the lifts are dead. And you're not allowed, but Evan was already gone. He grabbed the emergency stairwell door and pulled it open. The air inside was freezing. He climbed fast, 2 steps at a time, his shoes slamming against the metal. Halfway up, he heard a small cough. Weak, struggling, he pushed harder when he reached Lyra's floor. The hallway was completely dark except for one flickering light at the end. The sound of a failing machine echoed through the silence. Evan ran toward her room. He burst inside and saw Lyra slumped sideways in her hover chair, eyes half closed, breathing unevenly. Her life support module flashed a warning symbol. The power had already dropped too low. Lyra? He shouted, rushing to her. She opened her eyes weakly. Who? Man, it's okay. I'm here. He checked the machine. The energy core showed only 3% left. If it hit 0, her breathing support would fail. Her chair would collapse. She could die. Evan grabbed the manual override handle on the back of the machine. He had seen a technician use it once. It allowed the machine to run on raw mechanical force instead of power, but it required constant turning. Heavy turning, he pulled the handle. The machine sputtered, then stabilized slightly. Lyra breathed easier, but only because Evan was powering it. Evan braced his feet, gripped the handle with both hands, and turned, and turned, and turned. His shoulders shook. Sweat dripped down his face. His muscles burned, but he didn't stop. I've got you, he whispered. Lyra rested her weak hand on his arm. Lady Sarisha burst into the room minutes later with a flashlight. She froze when she saw the scene, her daughter breathing, her machines running, and a human trembling, sweating, exhausted, manually powering everything with sheer strength. He didn't look at her. He didn't ask for help. He didn't complain. He simply kept going. Lady Sarisha felt something she had never felt before. Respect, fear, and the realization that this human was not like the others. He was something more. Lady Sarisha had seen many things in her long life: broken contracts, collapsing markets, political attacks, even the burning of a starship fleet. But nothing struck her heart the way the sight before her did. A human was bending over her daughter, using his own strength to keep her alive. His arms shook, his breath came in sharp gasps, and sweat rolled down his face. But he did not stop turning that heavy lever even for a second. If he did, Lyra's breathing machine would collapse. "Evan," she whispered. He didn't hear her. He was too focused, too determined, too afraid of failing the little girl beside him. Lyra's hand stayed on his arm, her eyes half open, but peaceful. For the first time in years, she did not seem afraid, not of the dark, not of the broken machine, not of the silent room. She trusted him completely. Lady Sarisha felt her throat tighten. She stepped closer, her silver robes brushing the floor. "Human," she said again. Louder. Evan looked at her only for a second, just long enough to nod before focusing again. "She'll be okay," he said between breaths. "But if I stop, the machine dies." Lady Sarisha turned toward the broken wires, the flashing symbols, the dead lights. Even with her immense wealth, she could not fix this moment. All the power she had, and none of it could replace the strength of this one man's hands. She knelt beside Lyra and cupped her daughter's face. "My child, I'm here." Lyra leaned her head into her mother's palm weakly, but kept her. Fingers curled into Evan's sleeve, and suddenly Lady Sarisha understood. Something very painful and very true. Her daughter loved him, not in the way of romance or family, but in the way a frightened heart loves the first place it ever felt safe. Minutes passed. They felt like hours. Evan's arms burned. His back felt like fire. His breathing turned harsh. But he kept pushing, rotating the lever over and over. His hands began to blister. His fingers went numb. Lady Sarisha watched every moment. Finally, she pressed her wrist communicator. "Activate protocol A7. I want every engineer, every technician, every guard, every mechanic in this room now." Her voice was shaky, but powerful. Within moments, engineers rushed in with tools and glowing repair kits. They gasped when they saw Evan powering the machine alone. "My lady, he's been doing that by himself." "Fix the system," she snapped. "Now." They scrambled to open panels and reconnect emergency power lines. During those intense minutes, one engineer whispered to his partner, "I've seen soldiers fall from this task in 10 minutes. How long has the human been doing this?" "Long enough," Lady Sarisha answered coldly, overhearing him. She stood behind Evan, placing a steadying hand on his back, not controlling, but supporting. "You did not have to do this," she said quietly. Evan didn't look up. "She needed me." "She is not your child," she said softly. "That doesn't matter." Lady Sarisha was silent. Her chest ached with something she had never felt before. Respect, gratitude, and something deeper. The engineer shouted. System restored. Lights flickered back on. The machines hummed with fresh power. Lyra took a deep, steady breath. Evan finally let go of the lever, but as soon as he did, his arms gave out. He collapsed onto one knee, breathing heavily. Lady Sarisha caught him before he fell forward. "You saved her," she said, her voice breaking. "You saved my child when everyone else failed. Evan shook his head weakly. She saved me too. She trusted me. Lady Sarisha looked at him with an expression no human had ever seen from someone of her status, softness, warmth, awe. She stood up straight, her voice rising with a force that shook the entire room. "Listen, all of you," she said. "From this moment, this human is no longer a janitor." Everyone froze. Evan looked up in confusion. Lady Sarisha continued. "He is now Lyra's official protector, her guardian, her shield." Gasps filled the room. She stepped closer to Evan, and any being who disrespects him, disrespects me. The elites had feared this moment. Now their fear had come true. A human had risen not by power, not by skill, not by wealth, but by heart. A full day had passed since the power failure, but the hospital was still trembling with whispers. Something impossible had happened, something no elite alien wanted to accept. A human janitor had saved a billionaire's daughter, not by technology, not by training, not by orders, by heart, and now the entire galaxy would hear about it. Morning sunlight poured through the hospital's high windows as Lady Sarisha prepared for a public announcement. Her long silver robes flowed behind her like liquid metal. Her expression was calm, her eyes carried a storm. Beside her, Lyra sat in her upgraded hover chair, breathing easily, holding a small toy Evan had repaired. She looked stronger today, happier, safer, and behind them, walking quietly but confidently, was Evan. He had been given new clothes, simple but clean, designed with the symbol of Sarisha's house. He still felt strange wearing them. He still felt like himself. But Lyra kept looking back at him, smiling, as if she needed to make sure he was still there. Lady Sarisha noticed every detail. She was not a woman who forgot debts. And Evan had saved her greatest treasure. When they entered the grand hall, hundreds of elites, doctors, guards, engineers, and reporters turned toward them. Some eyes held shock. Others held anger. But most held confusion. Why was a human walking beside royalty? Lady Sarisha raised her hand, and the room fell silent. "I have gathered you here," she said, her voice echoing through the hall, because a truth must be spoken. She turned to Evan, who stood still, humble but strong. "Last night, when our systems failed, when our staff panicked, when even my wealth could not save my daughter, this human stepped forward." Gasps rippled across the hall. She continued, her voice colder. "Many of you claim to care for Lyra. Many of you claim to be the best. Yet none of you were there when she needed you most." Shame spread among the elites, their eyes lowering. "And he," she said, pointing at Evan, "a man you all ignored, a man you mocked, a human you called weak, held her life in his hands and refused to let go." Reporters raised their cameras. Guards stood straighter. Lyra's eyes shined. "And so," Lady Sarisha said, "I will show the galaxy what true strength looks like." She turned fully toward Evan Neal. Evan hesitated. "My lady?" "I'm just..." Lyra reached for his hand. "Heart," she whispered. He knelt. Lady Sarisha lifted a glowing crest, her family's ancient symbol of honor, in recognition of courage, compassion, and a heart stronger than any machine, she said, her voice soft but powerful. "I name you the first human guardian of the Shah dynasty." The crest touched his shoulder, releasing a soft blue glow. "You are no longer a janitor," she said. "You are a protector, advisor, and friend of my daughter, and your place is beside her." A wave of shock swept the hall. Some elites gasped. Some whispered angrily. Some stared in disbelief. But Lyra didn't care. She reached forward and wrapped her small arms around Evan's neck. He hugged her back gently. Lady Sarisha looked at them, her daughter smiling openly. freely, as if she had finally found her missing piece. She turned to the crowd. And know this, if anyone disrespects him, they challenge me. No one dared speak. Later, after the hall emptied, Evan and Lyra sat near a large window overlooking the city. Floating ships glided through the sky. The world felt calm again. You okay? Evan asked her quietly. Lyra nodded and held his hand, her voice soft. You saved my heart. Evan smiled. You saved mine too. Lady Sarisha approached them slowly, her eyes softer than ever. You have changed my daughter's life, she said, and you have changed mine. Evan shook his head humbly. I only did what was right. That, she answered, is why you are different. She looked out at the bright alien sky. A new chapter begins today. For Lyra, for you, for humans everywhere. And she was right. A single human janitor had changed the fate of an entire race. Not with power, not with war, not with force, but with kindness, and the galaxy would never be the same again.